Morning, one and all. Welcome to the day 3 of this 5-day faculty development program on blockchain technology, which is being organized by the Bangalore Institute of Technology in association with AICT Training and Learning Academy. Today, we have two industrial experts from Dell, Mr. Muralidhara Mallur and Mr. Adithya Nadig. So both the speakers, both the experts will be handling the sessions together. All the 3 sessions will be on diving deep into Hyperledger fabric with the theoretical as well as the hands-on session. So coming to the introduction part of Mr. Muralidhara Mallur, he's currently a software principal engineer at Dell Technologies. He's a geek researcher and has an industrial experience of 14 years. He has previously served as senior technical consultant at Geo4G Solutions, senior technical specialist at Continental Automotive, senior device staff engineer at Dell International Services, and senior software engineer at VXL Instruments. He also owns 6+ patents in his. He has also published papers in several international conferences. Coming to the introduction part of Mr. Adithya Nadig, he has an MTech in computational mathematics from NITK Surathkal, B in computer science. He works as a software engineer in Dell. He's a passionate programmer and has an expertise in system programming, machine learning, and full stack development. He's a blockchain enthusiast. He has written a thesis on diagnostic entitled Profiling the Health of a Personal Computer through Software Diagnostic Parameter Monitoring. I thank you both for accepting our invitation and getting associated with this faculty development program. And over to you now. I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Bhargavi. It was a nice introduction. So thank you, BIT, for giving us an opportunity on sharing our explorations and blockchain understanding and practical aspects of the blockchain. Is very important to understand by the academic research scholars, because what we see on theory, on research papers is different. What industry looks at the same data is different. Today, we are here to share our ground root realities of how different from industry experience or how industry looks at the research and how academic and other people looks at it. So with that as a context, I would like to thank once again Dr. Bhargavi and BIT for giving us an opportunity to share our knowledge on the blockchain to a wider audience. I hope this will be useful for everybody. So let me share my screen. Okay. So today I and Aditya is going to be a presenter and co-presenting the whole topic. And today's sessions will be divided into 3 parts. The part number 1 is going to be, we will try to understand more about Hyperledger Fabric. I think definitely you would have heard in the last sessions, Hyperledger Fabric is already a word, is very well known in the blockchain industry. A lot of speakers yesterday or day before yesterday have spoken about it, but we don't repeat that, I'm sure. We'll try to deep dive into it and understand more about it, why this fabric is being developed, what is the use, and what is the industry is looking at this fabric as a solutions. So that would be the main today's agenda of the first session. And at the end of the first session, we will cover up mostly how to build a development environment on your own computer or your own VM on the for start developing or exploring by hands-on. And the second session would be, second part of the same session is going to be how the network, basic network can be built within your system, which will enact as a network and to explore the Hyperledger capability inside your system. So that would be the cover up to the first session. And in the second session, we will be covering up on the write your own blockchain right from the zero. What it means is today there is software industry is no more bare metal solutions. What it means is, in academic, usually when we start writing a program, we always start with write a program for X, Y, Z, and we keep solving everything stage by stage, and we see one program as one entity. But with an advancement of technology, industry is no more starts with that. There's a lot of people, lot of are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, sorry. So we will see in the how we can develop our own basic understanding of a blockchain and build from the zero of chain code from using a Python. That would be the focus on the second session. And the last will be, there is a one end-to-end application, whereas voting application will be developed and it will be demonstrated everything on the blockchain Hyperledger fabric. Okay. So with that, I would just start my presentation towards. I think already enough of information has been told about me. I am a geek researcher. I'm a tech into person who keep exploring any new technology which comes up and keep sharing the knowledge. And advantage, being in the industry is an advantage. We get an opportunity to organize our establishments or our accomplishments into the patents. So in that, I was able to make my patents also in the industry, in the area of infrastructure, and I carry a total 14 years of experience, and I love to teach technology. With that, I just want to give a 1 minute for Adithya to introduce himself. Then we will start into the session. Over to Adithya.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Adithya Nadig. I have a MTech in computational mathematics from NITK. Since then, I'm working in Dell as a software engineer. I'm a passionate programmer. Programming is a hobby for me, development and programming. And I'm also a blockchain enthusiast. So I'm looking forward to this session. We'll have a practical hands-on. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Adithya, for introduction. And the two small announcements. I think the most of participants are in the mute mode. You'll not be able to talk because the participant list is very big. I think we'll not be allowed to talk everybody. For that, actually, we will be active on a chat window. If you have any questions, give your questions in the chat window, and we'll try to take questions as and when we pause for the topic. And if you want to unmute and talk on anything, just raise your hand. I think you have an option in the participant things. Then Dr. Bhagavi can facilitate you to unmute and talk about it. And if you like anything, you can express your interest or knowledge or understanding using reactions. There's a thumbs up, thumbs down, and all of things effectively can use. So because unfortunate situation is today we are in a virtual world and we are not able to talk face to face, that's we need to use technology better. So apart from that, I just want to announce one more thing. The last is I have already shared a document, which is a prerequisite document required for this today's session 2 and session 3, especially because we are going to do practically writing a program or a blockchain today. So I strongly encourage everybody to go through the prerequisite document what we have given. We already given 2 VMs for a session 2 and session 3. Download it, install your virtual box onto your system and download the image and load it. So we already configured the VMs for the today's demo or a demo development purpose. We can use the same VMs for that. So if you are facing any problems, maybe in a breaks, you can let us know. We'll try to answer. Worst case, if you are not able to set up, it also is fine because we'll try to cover up a maximum all the scenarios or the session itself. Okay. So then, without wasting much time, let's deep dive into an agenda of today. I just want to give, before getting into the Hyperledger Fabric, a little bit more knowledge on the how today development happens in the industry and how applications are different. That's a one introduction. We'll just go through a little deeper, and then we'll get into the Hyperledger Fabric, why, what, how it is being developed, and what is the use and everything. And we'll look at the couple of applications and the use cases of Hyperledger Fabric. And I'll touch base upon architecture, because architecture of the Hyperledger is a little complex topic. It's very difficult to cover in the one session, but I'll try to give the basic overview of that. So to give more understanding on the same, I'll just we'll walk through on a case study, which is an insurance application we picked for today. And at the last part of the today's session, we'll talk about Hyperledger Fabric installation on Ubuntu environment and build your first network on a Hyperledger Fabric. Any technical questions? Sometimes we may use a little advanced words or synonyms, jargons. Feel free to put it in the chat window. If we are not able to answer the same inside the session, we'll try to answer those in at least in chat replay or in the break sessions. We'll try to answer that. Okay. So let's get into the today's agenda of the main topic of monolithic. So I know you're maybe by looking at this, what is this? Too much of big diagram or too many content. So on the left-hand side, I want you to notice what usually people assume when you guys are teaching or when you're developing any of the applications. Usually, everybody thinks that the traditional monolithic app, single stack technology, what we used to use in late 90s till 2010 time frame was this. So we used to have database, we used to have a database layer and business logic, web services, and UI layer. You look at a maximum apps out in the world today, any app you consider, any web server you consider, any web application you consider, it comes under the monolithic stack. And most of the time, when you guys are teaching, you follow the same logic. But unfortunately, that is no more valid in the today's industry. No company is working in today on this layer. Monolithic app is outdated, and majority of the people already transitioned into the newer technologies. But some apps like a banking and other apps are still in the process of migrating one by one. When we come to the right side of the same, this tells about how microservice architecture, and also people usually call it as full stack development. A lot of times, I think you guys might have heard in the advanced subject, full stack development. Full stack means basically now any individual who wanted to get into the IT industry, he cannot be an expert of a one layer. Earlier, it was a scenario where if you are good at UI layers, you will be hired and you will be given any jobs. And if you're good at web services, there'll be a separate roles, database roles are separate, and business experts are separate. But today, it's all of these things have been knocked out. So that's where people will keep talking about from the industry, the full stack we need a people where they can understand, they'll be able to understand right from the database to the UI and to the cloud and to the hardware and infrastructure. So it is really difficult as a very competitive, as a knowledge acquisition perspective, because too many jargons, too many concepts will keep coming in, but that's a fact. If you want to compete in today's world, we have to understand the architecture, how exactly it works, and every simple solution out in the market today. I will not go in detail everything. The reason I brought up this topic is you should know the difference between monolithic designs and microservice architectures. And when you are teaching to your students, maybe you can understand more about microservice and start teach about the microservice architecture and the business logic the way we do. Since that's not a main topics today, I just want to touch base and give a brief idea on how it looks like and the programming languages side also. So with that, I'll jump into the Hyperledger Fabric, and because Hyperledger Fabric comes as a layer in this entire design. Okay, so that's the reason, another reason which I brought up this before that. Let's look at the definition of Hyperledger. So what is Hyperledger? Hyperledger Fabric is a blockchain implementation platform geared to support development of applications or support with a modular architecture. I just want to use a simple analogy over here. You guys would have heard a lot about AI, ML, and auto ML. There's a lot of solutions or a lot of algorithms. But in today, if you look at the cloud world, nobody is writing a Bayesian classifier algorithm into right from the scratch in the code. The most of the basic algorithms or even in advanced algorithms are developed and are available as a library. And all the other layer, application layer people just use that APIs or functions to build their applications. Okay, this is little different in the terms of research, coming to the research, but practically application or a business will never look at the algorithms or a research work as in a business value. The business value at creation will always happen at the application development level. When application developers should aware that how fast, how nimble they can develop the entire solution to the market. So that is the reason you see with the transition to the monolithic to the microservice architecture, any software is getting developed and released to the market within a quarter or 2 quarters of max. Earlier, it was a situation that if you want to build a software like a WebEx or software like a Teams, if you know the recent development, it used to take years of time. But if you know the story of a Teams recently, what it happens is Teams got developed almost within a quarter. To believe it or not, that is such a massive tool has been developed within a quarter. How that was possible? Just because of the microservice architecture, which is in practice today in development. Okay. So in the same way, to support a blockchain, because post 90s, whenever people started talking about a blockchain, the mostly of first 10 years, it was only limited to the Bitcoin world of blockchain means everybody was talked about a Bitcoin, but it was not that useful for any other application. But a few people in the industry was looked at this same concept of blockchain into the different vision. That is what the reason for Hyperledger Fabric start. Hyperledger Fabric is an open source platform. There is no owner for it, but there are major contributors. Usually IBM is the biggest contributor to the Hyperledger Fabric, and it is a platform, gives a certain services to today's modern world of application development. Okay, so that's very important. And correlating these concepts is very important when we, as we more deep dive into the Hyperledger. Okay, so I hope it makes sense now to get into the why Hyperledger question. So I'm sure yesterday and day before yesterday, you guys have heard about a blockchain, lot about the properties of blockchain. So what really Hyperledger Fabric gives is the 4 top components, which is confidentiality. What is confidentiality? I saw that there is a one presentation, I think day before yesterday, you guys were talking about a permission-less network and permission-oriented, public and private blockchains, basically. So Hyperledger Fabric comes under a private blockchain, especially it is going to be interconnect between an organizations to exchange data between parties without breaking the trust. So for example, I just want to give example is a lot of early development prototypes of Microsoft has to be shared with a Dell. So there is earlier people used to share content or a knowledge or APIs using NDA agreements, which was a physical copies of NDA agreements. But today with the blockchain, we no more go with the physical letters of NDA or anything. There is a concept of smart contract. anything which is shared between a Microsoft and a Dell will be based on the smart contract, and the accountability will be there for both. And at the same time, nobody can get access apart from the people who wanted to share. So that is where a key concept of Hyperledger Fabric comes into picture. In the public network, it can interconnect to many organizations, as you see in the left-hand side, but it can block itself to an access level. That is what it indicates in the left-hand picture, is called as all peers are connected, but it is a small interconnected network. So this confidentiality will be maintained in the Hyperledger. The second thing is a flexibility. So as I mentioned, a microservice architecture, the flexibility comes automatically because you use this solution or APIs or application as need basis. Don't own up a big servers or a big data center to maintain and manage itself is a big task. You don't need to do all of those things because most of Hyperledger Fabric today is available on the AWS, on Azure, and all other things. You can just subscribe for what you require and you can start using it. And the third property is a resilience property. The resilience property is built because of, especially earlier, we used to build a lot of load balancer concepts to build in terms of resiliency, but now resiliency can be created because of more people are involved in the decision making instead of a one person thing. So that is another property, and ability to scale. Ability to scale automatically comes as a cloud architecture. So any number of stake increase or a decrease, or adding a new organization, removing a new organization, adding a peer, removing a peer, everything can be done on one single click. So that simplified is Hyperledger Fabric is. It is massive in its architecture nature, but it is simple in its usage level. Okay. So the next, now we understood that why Hyperledger Fabric to build, and the next is I just talk about what really an Hyperledger Fabric offers to us as a service. So as I mentioned, today every software is built on the service, software as a service architecture. In the background, it's a microservice architecture. It gives certain protocols or applications and the interfaces to any application to use. To give a simple analogy between the concept, what I'm talking, and what today you guys might experience, Google Maps is the best example. Google Maps is a service which has been built by the Google, and they give an APIs. You see Zomato, Domino's, or any other service vendors, and even Ola, Uber, everybody just uses their API to track their, inside their application, they just track the deliveries and all other things. So that is exactly the Hyperledger Fabric also offers. It builds all the basic functionalities required for a distributed ledger concept, and it gives basically a trust-based membership. So I'll just wanted to take a step back here. I am sure that you guys are discussed enough of centralized and a decentralized concept. One note from my side is, whenever I talk about Hyperledger, think about any use case which you guys are already aware. The solution is a centralized. Now blockchain makes it to a decentralized. And the action will be taken based on the majority of the ownership, which is a peers. Earlier in the centralized system, all decisions happens on a one person. But in a decentralized system, the many people will involve in making a decision. Okay. So one such example, if I want to give here, is in the blockchain, many people will talk about this example is a land record management. Today, I'm sure everybody would have been experienced in many, at this point, many times, at least a purchasing of a property and exchanging the property. Look at that as how today it is working in the traditional method. So in the traditional method, if you want to exchange any of the property or either a flat or a land or a plot, So we go to a sub-register office. Sub-register has to verify a certain amount of documents to check the authenticity of the land or a plot or a apartment. So then he looks at the identity of the people, and then they make one centralized decision to exchange of the goods in returns of the money. So you see a lot of fraud over there again. Why? Just because there is a one person and one authority is making a decision over there. And all of the checks and balances over there in the current system, even though it is digitalized or a computerized, it is again is a centralized system. Apart from the owners, apart from the sub-register officer, nobody else can do any actions or nobody else. But whereas the same thing, if you come to the concept of blockchain or a Hyperledger fabric, so what happens over here is we will always decentralize this entire process. What do you mean by decentralized? Instead of a one sub-register office is taking a consent, so in the registration process, identity as Aadhaar, your digital entity, bank entity, individual owners, and representatives, everybody has to be participated in the whole process and accept the transaction to be completed. So I think already this kind of solutions are in development in the market. You can look more about it and understand. But I just give this example: land record management problem, centralized versus a decentralized. When I talk about fabric or Hyperledger, you just look at that, how this can be changed, the concept of today's decentralized concept to a decentralized one. Okay, so that visualization will help you. Coming back to what Hyperledger Fabric offers is it gives that adding of a member and removing of a member from the using a trust-based MSP perspective. So this is a unique problem in the industry or in a private blockchain. Why? I'll tell you. So usually in the public blockchain, if you know the Bitcoin, what happens? Anybody who has a capability to run or a mining process can be a part of the network. The biggest question has been raised by the industry whenever it has started investing into this concept is, how do I trust any node? Because in the reality, anybody can get into the network and can drive the network further. So what assume if some anomaly or some intruder comes into the network and he starts spreading the negative concepts. So that's the biggest threat to a business or an industry world for that. So for that, in Hyperledger Fabric, what they did is there is a membership service and there's a membership provider. So all information of the membership will be given based on the service, and enrollment has a stringent process of enrolling into the blockchain network. So that way, people build a more trust than less intruders into the network, because we are allowing here more people to make a decisions. Okay. And consensus. Any decision is made in the Hyperledger or a blockchain is here based on the consensus. What it means is, assume that in the system of land record management, just a simple analogy again is, one property belongs to X person as transferring to a Y person will be known to an entire population of the world. That would be a more transparent than on a paper and a 5 parties, right? But challenge is, entire population knowing this information is very difficult without having a strong backend systems. For that, what we are in the blockchain it is doing is, the total information will be given to everybody to authenticate, and out of the peers or out of the members of the network, has 51% of the people has to say this is the right transaction and we can go for it. Then only the transaction will happen in the blockchain world. So that coming together and giving a vote for one transaction authentication is a consensus. So that's more like our democratic concept, what we talk about in democracy. Whoever gets a majority of the vote share is the true person, even though it has different issues on the manual process. but that's a true sense of consensus. We all give consensus to choose a leader. Okay, that's a one. The consensus protocol is developed by Hyperledger Fabric, and we don't need to build ourselves. We can directly use that. So that's what it is offering. And a ledger storage. The ledger storage, I'm sure again this concept would have been covered in the last topics. I'll not repeat the basic definition again. The ledger in this here is called as a distributed ledger. In other words, it's called as a distributed database. Earlier, we used to call it as a distributed database. Now it's a distributed ledger in terms of blockchain. Okay, the more or less the same concept, because as I mentioned, every peer will have its own copy and the data will be available with everybody. So that's the one. And hosting and costing. As this Hyperledger Fabric is open source platform, the IBM is hosting the solution, and anybody who want to use the solution as is in their production environment or in the solutions, they can just use the IBM Bluemix Cloud and start using this Hyperledger Fabric. In the same way, same offers are available with Amazon AWS services and Azure services also. So we understand all of this, but we don't develop any of these things because all of these things are readily available to consume as an API format. Remember that. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Okay. So with that, I just want to check the attentiveness of everybody. I have a couple of questions to just poll it. I'll just poll a couple of questions. You will get a 1 minute option. Let's understand our understanding so far. So, and we'll see. Just give me a 1 second. I'm doing it for fast time. So here is the first question. It comes up to your screens and you can start answering, choose whatever is your answer, and time limit is a 1 minute. Only 20% finished. I hope you guys are able to see the question on your screens. Please choose your answer. Okay. I'll go with the second question. And your time is started. The participation is important, your understanding is important, because from the answers, what you make, if I want to repeat any of the topics, I can do it. Please do participate. %60 of the people not yet started, only 10 seconds remaining. Okay, time up. So 60, I'm expecting a little more. I'll start with one more question. The next question is on your screen. Thirty more seconds. Okay, if you guys are maybe using a small screens, apologies for that. I think you will not be able to see full question. Five seconds more for closure. Yeah, done. Okay. 64, it's good. Good participation. Thank you for your participation. Well, back to the session, and in between, I'll pop up some more questions.
Excuse me, Murli. Can we address the questions? Maybe.
Sure, I'll do that at the last. That would be better. I would park those things at the last.
Sure.
So I'll move on. Let's now look at the use cases. It's a massive list. Many people would have been given. I also took it from one of the publishing content. So today, everybody is talking about a blockchain because people have started seeing a value using of blockchain of every small solution out in the market, which is so you can see every solution which are there in the market can be use the blockchain. Why? It's very simple. If you understand a basic concept of blockchain is all about managing distributed database with a security and a tamper-proof nature. This is giving three major advantages for every solution today. Every solution today is facing the same problem. For example, I just want to give one example, which we talk about in session 2 today, is a product review system. I'm sure most of you would have been went into the e-commerce website and started purchasing online shopping. So most of online shopping happens on the e-commerce portals based on the product reviews, because we don't get to see a device or a product in hand, unlike another shops, right? So if we cannot experience. What is an alternate way of experiencing it? We rely on a lot of reviews given by the product users from the market. But the question here today in front of technology is, all of those reviews what you are reading, is it really true? Or is it really an original data given by the user is posted? The answer to that is no, because the product owners, or even assume the Amazon, will not keep all bad reviews or any bad reputation content on the review system. They stay on the thing, but in the backend, what happens usually, they keep a filtered content for a reviews to promote their product. They don't really bother. Why this is happening? And technically, if you look at, it's at end of the day, all of this information is storing in a database, and database in a centralized database. And in the centralized database, all is having a control to the web application owner, whoever is hosted that. The guy who is hosted an application will have a full control to what to keep, what not to keep in the solution session. Okay. So what happens usually, they try to take filters, they put a filters on it, and usually they give better reviews, and whatever comes as maybe a bad reviews or sometimes even intruder reviews, they'll try to remove all of it. But that is giving a wrong feedback about the product, correct? We'll try to see more about this problem in the second session, but I just want to give. And today, blockchain, what it does, so no more a single owner for a database, no more single database. So it is a concept as database is converting into a distributed ledger, and ledger is available with every party which is using the network or using the solution. So everybody knows on everything, and data cannot be tampered. What it means, once data can be inserted to the ledger, but the data cannot be removed because of the base property immutability what blockchain is bringing. I hope again, the immutability definition everybody knows. It uses a hash concept to store a next value, so that any value, if you want to change, you have to change, you cannot change the one record, you have to change the entire database of records. So because of that, so it is database rights are immutable here. So that way, manually changing data in the database is not allowed in the blockchain system. That's an advantages you get in. I'll just give maybe a 30 seconds more to read out. Post your questions, anything onto the chat window, or if you want to know about any of these use cases. Otherwise, if you know the basic concepts, you will understand very easily how this Hyperledger fabric can be used in these solutions. Meanwhile, Adithya, you have any top questions in the chat window, you can just let me know. I can try to answer those questions.
So far, Murali. I don't see any questions. Yeah, I have got one. Autonomous vehicles in IoT, how
Okay, I think more people are interested in autonomous vehicles, and I'm happy to answer this question because I have a good amount of experience in automotive industry as well. So IoT and autonomous vehicles today, they're talking about smart talking to each other. For example, I just want to give one business use case which Ford Cars is building. What they are building in autonomous vehicles is whenever your car oil level is going to be a less than a threshold or a thickness of oil is increasing, your car is going to call your service center. Okay. And service center will get automatically alert. And again, the owner of the car will get alert of that. This is a solution, a small solution which Ford is trying to build. It's in a pilot phase in UK and US, not in India. But if you look at this problem, why this blockchain or Hyperledger fabric comes here is, so if you maintain a normal standard database, okay, so you cannot aggregate all the people, like you see autonomous vehicles, parties, the owners, vehicles itself is an entity, and your service vendors, your part vendors, and your manufacturer, everybody has to be coordinated, right? And everybody knows a real-time statistics of the vehicle to manage better. So if you want to have that, the distributed ledger is the only concept can be used for maintaining the stocks, maintaining the accessibility, maintaining the security of the data. Okay, so in order to maintain the consistency and availability of our data, mostly a distributed ledger is the solution which will be used in autonomous vehicles for that. Okay. One more question I can take.
Yeah, there's one more question. How blockchain deals with data redundancy?
Okay.
So let me take this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
The redundancy, I am not sure what you meant by redundancy. If you're thinking of duplication of data, yeah, correct. I understand. So there is one more concept in blockchain called double spending. Is it the same thing? Yes, double spending. How there are in traditional blockchain, what happens? You mine the data, so you create a competition among the peers, among the nodes, so that it restricts you from making the transactions. But in Hyperledger, what happens? We have endorsers. Only endorsement peers can accept a transaction, so we can control the double spending problem there.
Okay. So I know this is an interesting topic. I would park other questions for maybe a later, because in the interest of time, we have, I think, 20 to 30 more slides to cover. But I'm sure we will answer all of your questions, even if not is in the session. We'll take all of these questions and send out an email for every question answer. Okay. And thanks for asking your questions. It's really appreciate your time and effort. So let's move on to a little more concepts of Hyperledger Fabric. What happens? So and who are the actors and what is the responsibility of individual? Okay. So the first actor or item in the Hyperledger Fabric is a peers. Peers are nothing but it's a most active elements operating in HLF Hyperledger Fabric. These nodes are connected to a client and responsible for hosting a smart contract. What it means, to make it more conceptualized on analogy level, peers is nothing but a group of people. So assume that the X decision has to be made in any of the org level or a village level or a town level or anything. What we do, we go for a majority of voting. So exactly the same concept used here. Instead of a people, we use here technology endpoints as a decision makers. So here the microservices will represent our individual people, and the rules of the endorsement process or authenticity verification will be done by the process. So that will referred as client SDKs or is also called as a PS. So in other means, any decision will be not made by the one single point, it will be done by minimum network of peers. Okay. So in the earlier picture, I think I'll just quickly go through. You can see here the list of peers will exchange the knowledge between everybody and we'll start making a decision. This is what it is called as a peers. Okay. The next is certificate authority. So this is another important in digital world, in usually a human world or normally we will have our own identity methods where your Aadhaar card or your other identity process, physically those can be verified and other things. But when it comes to the digital, we need to have a trusted people who are doing a right activity and things. So that is where a certificate authority comes into picture. So for every action happens on the solution will be authenticated using a certificates. So what is certificates is the same as what today's digital certificates we all see. In simple, for everybody's interest understanding, HTTP versus HTTPS. We all trust very signed signatures. Everybody says in the banking solution, right? Whenever you want to do a banking transaction, make sure that you have a lock symbol on top of your browser. What it means, there is a guy who is sitting in the background, is a certificate authority, is authenticating every transaction which is happening on a digital and in encrypted format. It will not be doing anything, because, and also they take a liability of that. If any of a misconcept happens, usually on a security threats, the certificate authority owns the fullest responsibility. Okay. So the definition says it dispenses the digital signed certificates to different actors to verify their ownership in the network. And these certificates bind the actor and actor's public key. So this is the same concept, nothing different. What we used to do it in RSA-based public-private key concept. We use the same logic here to do this. And if you want to get an example of the same, what is there in the market today, most of finance background people or any people who run a company, they get a digital signatures nowadays. No more the manual signature is valid. Digital signature or DSCs are used at even the government level. That has been authenticated using a certificate authority body. The same concept will be used here to identify peers and authenticate the peers. Okay. The next item in the list is orderer. Orderer is responsible. Yeah. Orderer is responsible ascertaining all the peers in the network have committed a transaction whenever the transaction is proposed or committed by the peer. So orderer is notified about the new transaction, then it forwards and commits this block to all adjacent pairs. What it means, orderer is it's a responsible entity which takes all the commands. If anybody has done their transaction and if it is approved, it notifies to all other blocks in the network and will inform the peers and will adjust it. What it means, the data is being distributed. Data distribution responsibility is going to be a orderer's responsibility. Okay. The next is important is a channel. What is channel? Channel is nothing but members or anchor peers or a shared ledger and chain code application. So you go back to your analogy again on the microservice architecture, which I talked about, the many companies, many peers, and sharing a one document, which is a shared ledger, and one code as shared between a multiple organization. All of these things are grouped under virtual concept. It's called as a channel. Earlier, we used to call the same concept as virtual subnets or a VPNs. Now it has got into the new name or a new style. It's called as a channel. VPN are restricted only to the network, but channel is mostly for the more than a network. It involves peers, it involves database, it involves codes, and it involves the people in the organization. So all of these things is called as a channel. Okay. And every transaction on the network has to be executed on the channel. Without channel, no, we cannot do. So that is what you see at the end of today's session. At the end of today, how the network will be created, how channels will be created. That sample we're going to show. And a chain code. Chain code is again a new term used, but otherwise it's the same concept. It's a APIs or a function which is written and mostly kept in a mind saying that the code also can be shared and code also can be initiated by different people and different organizations. So the official definition will be something like chain code is a programmable code that is instantiated on the channel, and it's a smart contract that runs on the peers and caters to creates the transactions. Okay. So actual code will be whatever we call it as a smart contract instead of a traditional conventional contract will be designed in the chain code. That also we will see in a second session today in practically. Okay. You just understand chain code is nothing but is basically a code which can be executed in many interfaces and not one-to-one or one-to-many. It's a chain. That's only the difference. Okay. I'll just do the quick time check. Okay, we are 30 minutes more. let me go data flow, how works and how data flow works in the Hyperledger fabric. Then we'll go for a one round of pulling of a question. Okay. So data flow in the Hyperledger fabric. We'll go a little slow here to understand how exactly happens. Here. The first, you can see the left-hand side, there's a diagrammatic presentation of the same. The step one is going to be any transaction proposal is submitted by an application to an endorsing peer. That's what Mr. Adithya was explaining. Here, anybody cannot do directly join the network and do actions. So that is not allowed in the private blockchain or in the Hyperledger fabric. Any transaction has to be done. First, it has to be submitted to the endorsing peer, which is called admin peer. That's a step one. As a step two, the endorsement policies give a brief of how and or what combination of endorsers are required to sign a proposal. Okay. So what it means, the endorsement policy will define that who are the signing authority, how many people has to sign this, or and what are the terms and conditions need to be followed, or what validations need to be done before doing the transaction approval. So just to give again an example here, if you see that, assume all you guys are go through the NAC and NBA process, right? NAC and NBA process has its own hierarchy of approvals. Everybody builds a data and a set of people, and they have to go through the process, which is being given by the guidelines and will approve by multiple hierarchy of people. Okay. So that is exactly the same concept. Digitally, we'll be talking here in the Hyperledger. That's called as an endorsement policies. It creates a virtual body at the dynamically who all should be involved in approving the transactions. Okay. So that is basically a second step. The endorser executes a chain code. That's nothing but a smart contract to simulate a proposal in a network to create a read or write set. This is important to note here. It will not do a direct operation. It do the simulate the proposal to give this information to everybody in the network. Okay. So this is what is the request. What it means, this is what is the request. I'm planning to do XYZ, and this information is, do you all guys agree? Can I do this? Yes or no? So now the network peers will understand what is the proposal is. After that, what happens? All endorsing peers send a signed proposal. If they like it and if they understand the policy is correct and if everything is correct, they sign proposal responses back to the application. So that's nothing but a step 3, endorsement signature. Here actually a real transaction did not happen yet. It is just a simulation happened and everybody has given a signature approval. It's not a final approval. Okay. The next is the same, continues. The application submits the transaction now and the signature given by the endorsement people to an ordering service. This is what is very important. First, we send a transaction proposal. Peers will understand what is the proposal and gives a signature. With that, the second step, there's nothing but a endorsement will given to everybody. The application submits a transaction and signatures to ordering service, which creates a batch or a block of transactions and delivers them to committing peers. Okay. The next, that's a step number 4. And next is it goes to the, each time a committing peer receives a transaction batch, it validates the endorsement policy was met for each transaction. Earlier, it just validated whether it is right or wrong, and it says signature. Now it's actually validating the actual transaction and comparing with the endorsement policy and meets the transaction or not. It also checks the read-write set to detect any conflicting transactions. Okay. Then that the last, when both check passes, the block is committed to the ledger, and with this, the state updates for each transaction and are reflected in the state database. Okay. So in conventional approach, we don't do any of these things. It is actually looks burden on the conceptual level if you see, but when it looks at the advantages, the security and the process we are taking and involving more people to make decisions is the unique advantages what we get. Okay. So any questions on this, please post it to the chat, and I can start a second round of polling now for a question. Let me do. Okay.
So
the question is up and your time starts. I think somebody was saying something in between.
yeah, I was trying to answer a question posted. What is
Go
a
ahead,
state
Adithya.
database? Yeah, here our blockchain is the ledger is our database. So I'll explain in the third session. Database, we don't have a centralized database here. So we maintain a ledger, a world state, and a blockchain that forms the database for us. In the session 3, I'll give you more details on that. So we don't have a centralized here. We have one blockchain where every data is connected.
Three more seconds. The next question. Okay. Last question for a timing. Here you go. I think then we will get into our use case study after this question. Hey.
Okay, so I'm answering the what is state database question. So it says state database. State database is nothing but our ledger. So it is the blockchain. We don't maintain in Hyperledger Fabric. We don't maintain a centralized database. So each peer, each node will have its database, but it is all connected in the blockchain.
Okay.
So, for example, if you have a record of, let's say, your wallet, how much money you have, if you make a transaction, the transaction is stored in the blockchain. Like you spend 10 rupees out of your 100 rupees, you commit that transaction in the blockchain, and it exists in the blockchain. But in your local database, you will have 90 rupees. That is your local database. Altogether, it forms a state database. With a pictorial representation, I will show it in the session 3.
Okay. Thanks, Aditya. So Aditya, you can also do, if you have any answers, maybe in the chat itself, we can try to answer if it is a small question. Otherwise, maybe we can take it at the last.
Sure.
Yeah. So with that, now I'll just, as I mentioned, architecture deep dive is very complex here, but I just want to show this very simple concept of how it is architecturally connected Hyperledger Fabric. So here you can see CA is nothing but a certificate authority, and organizations or different companies together comes to one network and do a transaction. So the best example, again, you can imagine Google Maps using by Zomato. The two organizations using, and the Zomato data is used by a lot of food companies. So that's the third one. So you can see that peers, organization 1, organization 2, organization 2, and everybody have their own CA, that's a certificate authority, to identify themselves and authenticate, and they have their own peers. Either it can be a one peer from the company, or it can be a many people, like a hierarchy, as I explained. So hierarchy of peers can be there, or it can be a single peer from the company. So that constitutes an actually a Hyperledger Fabric peer network. Okay. So Hyperledger Fabric consists of many nodes that communicate each other. The blockchain runs a program known as a chain code. That's I already explained. Central element as a transaction operations which are invoked on the chain code. It holds the state and a ledger data. So I know people are more curious about state and ledger data. If you see the eVote application in session 3, we will show live how exactly a state data, how is the ledger data looks like. And there you will get a lot of clarity in concept understanding. So, but it's good for all the questions will be answered over there. And execute the transaction. Each transaction has to be endorsed, and only endorsed transactions can be committed. This is again underlying point which you need to understand more. Endorsed transactions only will be committed is the way we avoid double data redundancy problem. All data will not be stored. It's only the what is required or what is valid data will be committed. That way we reduce the amount of data stored in the database. Okay. The next, to get more clarity on the same, I just would like to walk through one use case study, which is little complex in today's public solutioning, and how how blockchain can help over there. So here I'll just walk through the insurance problem today. What we are doing it. Most of you guys might have experienced one or the other ways, and I just want to give a little insight of what happens when we are making a solution for insurance and how many people are involved here. The first I'll just give the layman terms. Like what you see is, for example, purchase of insurance company. So how many actors are here? First is a customer. Customer will be contacted by the maybe a customer care guys or maybe a marketing guys. Marketing guys is a separate organization. Then it comes to the third party, the TPA we call it. The TPA guys will be a service vendors for this marketing guys. And again, TPA guys will have an interface with the actual insurer, like a banks, what you call as a national insurance or a Mediclaim or a FHPL, also all of these things or things, and insurance people. Then the actual insured vehicle and a validation and authenticate of the content. That is the one side of the story. Second side of the story is when it comes to the claim. The claim will first go to the claims agent, and then it has to go to the TPA, then it has to go to the insurer, then all validations and authentication has to be done, and then the claim should happen. So literally, in any of the insurance process, minimum 5 to 6 organizations will be involved to do the business of one insurance, right? The data exchange between all of these things and the peoples involved will make more complex in today's world the business of insurance and insurance claims. That is where you see a lot of issues on fraud. For example, a person takes insurance from one company, go to one hospital, claims one, and he also claims in another hospital in other places. Nowadays, it is improving a little bit, but still there are a lot of loopholes are there to exploit the system, because end of the day, everything is a manual. One organization will not know the database of another organization. What they share on the paper is the only evidence for them. And it is very complex and very expensive today. That's the biggest challenge in the insurance world. Now we will look at the more insight and how we can streamline or how we can simplify using a blockchain. The first thing is, by introducing a smart contract, we can get rid of entire paperwork. Every vendor in this process can be a part of the system in the blockchain as a peer network, and he can have a smart contract in place of a paperwork what it used to be. So that way we'll reduce tedious paperwork what is required for entire insurance. So few people are already started this bits and pieces, especially I see a couple of HDFC and other people have started this concept, but still a long way to go. But you will, that's the reason you will see there some people are offering on the online without even visiting any people. You will be able to buy insurances, and certain insurances are allowed now. But this again improves. That's one major advantage, and we can develop a sophisticated system where some claims can be verified, handled in less time. This is again a manual intervention. What we have can be converted into a validation or a verification process can be an automated. For example, if you know the car policies nowadays, people have started earlier. You used to go with your car to an insurance agent, and the insurance agent used to physically inspect and used to write and give it to an insurance company. But now if you see one step has been improved, the verification can be happened on the image processing and by taking an images or a videos of the same, right? So similarly, and that data, how digitally it can be verified. So that's the second step, which we're going to solve using a blockchain. So with that, what is the advantage? The time taken for verification will be a lot less than the in the current system. And very important, why people are going for this is potentially checking the fraudulent activities. Because of it is a manual or a paperwork, people can, if the person who is handling is an intruder, he can do all mistakes or he can create a fraud system over there. That's where a lot of people don't have a belief on insurance. They take the money, but at the time of a claim, you see a lot of issues happens over there. So those things can be corrected. And improving the data quality, which is to be used during the underwriting. So this is very important. Again, I'm sure insurance has its own trick in marketing. You see a lot of documentation and the guidelines will be given at the time of marketing. Because of the marketing person is in urgency, he will not give you a time to go through entire process and transparency. He'll just take a signatures and take the money and get it done. But if this is digitalized, the digital system can be make sure that every concept, what is behind the insurance policy can be well understood, and then only you can authenticate. So, and there is no conflicts will be there at that time. So that's another advantage what we can get. And we can enhance the efficiency across the insurance value chain. And for instance, creating a process for automated claims. Automated claims also is going to be the possible. A lot of people are already working on this, and today I'll just go a little more detail with this example in the blockchain and the Hyperledger fabric particularly. So what is actually a problem here? So let's look at the little deeper problem here. As I mentioned, there's a customer A record has to be sent to a merchant A records, and there is a bank records, there is auditors, there is a regulatory records, and there is an insurer record. All of these things are at different companies. So how the data exchange happens between them is on the papers, is on the mails, is on the their reports which they are sharing. Even though they have a software, but they take a report and they send it to the other company. So there is no direct exchange mechanism it is available. And another problem is the trust between the organizations, right? That's another problem. So what is today? It is expensive. People can tamper it, and it's a lot inefficient. By seeing the to and from communication, you can see how blockchain is solving this. Very simple. Blockchain ledger is a shared ledger. What it means, there is a one database which is decentralized, or also you refer to the blockchain ledger, which has an access to all of these data virtually connected. Okay, and everybody can work on the single channel on a communication without having a multiple communication options what they had. So three top things. Everybody agrees for that, like bank should agree, merchant should agree, customer should agree, insurer should agree, regulatory body should agree, and auditors will get the data. Everybody consensus will be there to approve a one transaction. In today, that's not possible, even if it is possible on paper, but it is not really happening. The second biggest thing is immutability. I've already explained immutability. Immutability means any records which is going to be inserted into the blockchain ledger cannot be modified, because every record creates its own hash value, and it will be multiplied on every transaction. So it's kind of a chain concept. That's the main reason it has been called as a chain effect. So it will never allow to remove any record in between. If you want to do a complete, you have to delete the entire thing. That means entire data goes to a zero. You cannot modify one small data inside things. That's the advantage of immutability. Then provenness. What is happening between a customer and a merchant is very well aware to a bank, very well aware to the auditor, the both. But today, that's not true. Only when the year-end submission happens, they'll come to know all of this. But here, everybody at the time of transaction itself will be involved and will do the transaction. And finality. Finality is nothing but basically it proves everybody agrees and everybody knows this is the right thing to do it. So there's no conflict of interest will come in the later. So this is the four important things what blockchain will bring it for a solution. And for any, not only insurance solution, for any solution you think where multiple organizations are involved will come under the same category, and same way we can solve that problem. Okay. So let me do the quick time check again. Sorry, another 10 minutes more. I will go a little faster here, I'm sure, but this data will be there. I'll share the slides. If you have any questions, you can come back to us later as well. If time permits, we'll try to cover as part of the session 2 or session 3. So this is many times we discussed already. Quickly, I'll go through privacy. So what is the business requirement? Business will look at like transaction should be secured, and it should be authenticated, and it should be access control enabled for a granular access. I think I saw the pop-up in the chat. Somebody was asking different roles. Yes, it is a different roles can be allowed, and different access. The roles will be managed using an access controls over here. In simple terminology of IT, if I want to tell, there will be admins, there will be accountants, there will be a managers, there will be a system users. So multiple level of roles will be defined, and according to their roles, the authentication things will be assigned to them. Okay. The second requirement is the trust. All transactions are verified and endorsed by the trusted relevant parties. Everybody is involved. Nobody can escape from the actually what is transaction I'm not aware of or I don't know. All of those things cannot come in the picture because everybody understands everybody's trust there. And append only immutable databases shared across the business network. That's another requirement. And a smart contract. Business logic embedded within a database and executed, validate, and store the transactions. Okay. This is the 4 top requirements which business comes up. For any business, this is only a top requirement. And what is exactly the Hyperledger Fabric is offering in an API service. Okay, what's the properties? I think I can skip this because we already had talked about it. Not required. So I'll just 1 second. So I think this is a self-explanatory because I've given enough data here. I'll skip again because you would have heard permission-based and Fabric and MSP related. I'll spend some time on this basically. Hyperledger Fabric deployment model. From here, I'll jump into the demo of how to install and how to deploy the first network. Okay. So Hyperledger Fabric deployment model looks like this. You see an orderer, you see a CA, you see a peer. The peer is nothing but a persistence layer ledger where you have a get and put functions. And there is a layer on top of that is called as smart contracts or also called as chain code will write the data to the persistence layer and will read the data from the persistence layer. Okay, that is a common here. On top of the smart contractor, you have a 3 components, which is endorser, committer, and a submitter. So usually a submitter is an external person, either application or maybe an external service. The endorser is the internal term. Again, we already gone through the same concept. Committer is the last step. Whatever is the orderer is sending, that data will be committed to an each and every peer database. Okay. On top of that, you will see a RESTful services where we see SDK, all the programs or application part will be integrated. So important thing is Hyperledger Fabric, endorser, committer, and submitter, how it comes in, smart contracts in entire application. If you revisit the same on the first, what I have shown on the microservice architecture, these 2 additional work, what we are introducing in the entire current application set. Nothing completely new what we are doing. What is blockchain or Hyperledger Fabric is giving this additional services on the same architecture. Okay. And Google Proto Buffer, I would say it's a little bigger topic. You guys can go through. Usually this is the commonly used point-to-point communication protocol nowadays for all of the inter-peer communication. Okay. So with that, a lot of self-explanatory content I have given here. I don't want to repeat that. You guys can go through. And if any questions, let us know. A gossip protocol is a protocol where the communication between peers, how it can happen and consistently and the performance. That's where we go through the gossip protocol functions. And no need to go in detail of these because all of these functions are ready available. If you decide to write an application, the API documentation is there and you can straight away start talking to the get and set functions of it. Okay, so this is the transaction workflow. Same process with the ordering of roses, how it goes to each and every stage. Entire steps are detailedly documented here, I think. In the interest of time, I'll skip all of these things as well. And I'll come to the last. Ledger is updated. Okay. So at the end, what it is basically benefits, it saves a time. immutable transaction across a spot is done at the same time. It reduces the risk of tampering, removes the cost overhead on maintaining and synchronizes in silo model. This is one important understanding. Again, data redundancy, it is related to data redundancy. One company having 10 companies having a 10 databases versus 10 companies having a one distributed ledger. We have to look at the cost or a data redundancy in that perspective. When we look at that, the lot of overhead will come down. I agree, if we want to maintain within a company a multiple databases or multiple duplicates will be there, but this is not treated as like that. This is treated as a distributed among the many organizations to serve the purpose. So that way, yeah, there is a little overhead of the data and authentication process is there. I agree with that, but it gives a lot more benefits than looking at the data. That is where there is a hierarchy. When to use a blockchain, when not to use a blockchain in the database application, there is a couple of questions. I think there is an exercise itself. If you ask, there is a 14 questions. If you ask the scenario, you'll come to know that what can be used where. Okay, so that would be the additional thing I just want to share. I'll share that even questionnaire also as part of the document, so you can go through that. The next is, it increases the trust, because now one person is not dealing with it, it's the system is dealing with it. So one person can go wrong, but the system cannot go wrong. Okay. So I have a couple of more questions, but I'll skip or we may do it in the session 2. Now I'll hand over to the Adithya to give a quick idea on how to install, where to start deploying from the Hyperledger fabric. I have to stop share this, and I think I have to share.
So Hyperledger Fabric has a very extensive documentation, and they provide you good help. Okay, one time I couldn't access something, I just dropped a mail, and everybody responded very quickly. They solved the problem. So they have an extensive documentation and a good support in online, also in Stack Overflow, in any environment you need. So if you can reach the documentation page of Hyperledger.
I think there is some problem. I'm opening up. Just give me 1 second.
Sure. So there are a couple of basic requirements you need to get in. You need for that for Hyperledger to install and practice in your local system. So if you have a Windows system, your Windows system should have Hyper-V virtual environment enabled. Some Windows systems do not have that, and it's a little bit problematic. So I prefer you can go with Ubuntu system. Ubuntu is open source, and you can deploy and develop there. So in Ubuntu, you need to have a couple of things. Go runtime is important. So Go runtime is important, and Node, Python, and they have a documentation of prerequisite what you have to have. Docker. If you see in the blockchain, there are peers. Each peer is a different module. If you run it in your local system, all the example, the peers will be in your local system. Actually, in real time, those peers is hosted on different machine. So what they do is they take a Docker image, Docker Composer, Docker container, and put an image there and run the peer there. And along with that, your chain code, which is the core of the business logic of Hyperledger, runs on another Docker. So Docker is one more requirement. So Murali, can you just go to the prerequisites there, getting started section? In prerequisites, you can see you need a couple of things: Git, curl, Docker Composer. Can you come down? Yeah, Docker Composer, and if you have decided to develop on Windows, then Windows Extra, these things are the requirements. Once you have done that, once you have the prerequisites ready, then deploying a sample installing a sample network and binaries is very simple. You just have to run this curl command, which will download a script into your system and run it. All the binaries, all the sample code also will be downloaded.
Yeah. Okay. Aditya, I think we are already running out of time.
Sure.
Let's break for now, and we will cover this topic again in the session 2 of the how to build a network and things. And I think can some people go on a mute who are not talking?
So in the second session, what I'll cover is I will try to give you a traditional blockchain experience. So we will try, there is already a code. What actually happens in a traditional blockchain? If you have decided to write a blockchain from scratch, from zero, we can do that in Python. There is a code so that we will get a sense of what is happening inside a blockchain. How the block, for example, we had a question, is it a linked list? Actually, it is a linked list. So we'll get to know how how it is connected. And in third session, we'll see how the Hyperledger is, how it is different from our traditional blockchain and what are the problem of the traditional blockchain.
Okay. So, okay. With that, I think we can call off for a break now. We will meet at again 12 o'clock for the session 2. Meanwhile, go through the prerequisites, prepare your systems. If you have any questions, let us know. We will answer that as well in the chat window. If not, no need to worry. You just follow the instructions what we have show. I think sessions will be recorded. You can do it yourself later as well. With that, thank you very much for your patience. We look forward for the session 2.
Was the full questions addressed?
No, some more is pending. I think I'll cover it in the second.
Okay. I request all the participants to be connected. They're all logging off. Actually, we have a virtual photo session now. I request the speakers also to join in. I'm getting an echo. Echo. Yeah. Yeah. So I request all the participants to turn on your videos so that we can have a virtual photo shoot. So unfortunately, since this is in an online mode, it has not been possible for us all to interact in the way it would have been possible in an offline mode. So this is one way through which we can all see one another, and as memory, we can have this, a screenshot and a video, and a video that is also being recorded here. So I request the speakers also to join in for this. I request all the participants to please turn on your videos. Thank you. The first time I'm able to see everyone live on. We'll just give 2 minutes because many are turning on their cameras now. Actually, not able to see many people's videos. So I'll be sharing this screenshot to you all as well. Thank you. Due to network issues, it's flickering a lot.
Because of video streaming, network usually goes for tough.
Yes. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all. It was nice seeing you all live today. Thank you for joining in, and let's have this learning going on for the next 2 days as well. Thank you very much for being the part of this program. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you all. We'll meet for the next session at 12. So let's take a break. It's a continuation by Mr. Murli and Mr. Adithya Nadig, where it will be a hands-on session. Kindly install the prerequisites that has been shared. Okay, thank you.